favorite things about Christmas in recent years has been reading some of the signs that you see that people put out or put in part of decorations. I wanted to share a few of them with you as we get started. I really like this one. When you stop believing in Santa, you get underwear. There's one that came out not too long ago that says, wanted for breaking and entering, keeping deer without a permit. Santa Claus, a.k.a. Saint Nick, Father Christmas, and so on and so forth. We can look back at one like this. It says, Feliz Navidad. You kind of wonder what's going on with their leasing agent at this location. But then you can look a little bit further and you can look at ones that look like this. Santa knows when I'm sleeping, he knows when I'm awake, and he knows when I've been bad or good. I find that rather creepy. And then there's this one that Santa saw your Instagram pictures and you're going to get clothes and a Bible for Christmas. I think we can say a hearty amen to that with some things that we see out there on the internet. There's this one, I'm not for sure exactly about it. 3 wise men? Are you kidding? I don't know the meaning behind it. You can judge for yourself. Sometimes when it comes to reading signs, though, we need help in reading them. I'm thinking of a man who was involved in a traffic accident several years ago. They pulled him out of his car. He was unconscious, and they were trying to help him, and the emergency personnel was there, and they had taken him. He's passed out. He's stretched out on the gurney in a service station parking lot. It was a Shell service station parking lot. That's very important to note for the rest of the story. Well, they're taking care of him. He's unconscious. He's lying there on the ground. He comes to. And on the floor, on the ground in the Shell service station parking lot, he absolutely goes berserk. He's trying to push the people away that are trying to help him, and he can't get free, and he's just going crazy. Well, someone was standing in front of the S. Oh, he was having a hard time reading the sign. Oh, no. Sometimes we have trouble reading signs. And the last thing that I want you to do is to let you enter Christmas having misread an important sign. And so Luke says in Luke 2 in verse 7, and she gave birth to her firstborn son, and wrapped him in swaddling clothes and laid him in a manger, because there was no room for them in the inn. One of the most celebrated parts of Christmas is where she lays Jesus. She lays him in a manger. And we have entire nativity sets working around that theme. We sing songs about that theme. We sang one tonight. It's a big deal in the Gospel of Luke, and Luke mentions the manger 3 different times. Now, having babies has always been risky business. Where you keep a baby while the baby is sleeping has also been risky business. A lot of people don't know this, but the baby crib wasn't even developed until sometime in the 1800s. Until then, many babies slept with their parents, which could have proved to be fatal as well. But when the baby crib came along, it underwent quite an evolution over time, and some of the ways that it had changed. In the early days, the crib was raised above the ground the way that our cribs are today, because it was thought that the toxic fumes were down at the bottom, it was thought that the toxic fumes, because they were heavier, were laying on the ground, but the explosive fumes floated near the top because of the hot air that rises, causing them to go up there. So it felt the safest place was to have babies in that safe zone, kind of in the middle between those 2 areas where the air is purest. Of course, they painted their cribs back in those days with lead-based paint. So we know what that came of that, too. But in the early 1900s, the cribs went underwent another evolution. Doctors began to emphasize the importance of a baby getting a lot of fresh air in the first 12 months of their life. So they recommended that the baby spend a lot of time outside. But if you're raising a baby in a metropolitan area like New York City or maybe Chicago, and you live in one of those big high-rises, getting your kids outside can present a challenge. And so then along came the baby cage. Check this out. I mean, this is real, folks. It actually happened. The baby cage was brought along, and it was a way that if you lived up in one of these high-rises, that it would be attached to the outside and secured so that you would have a place and your baby could get fresh air. It's incredible. Look at this one. On the outside of these high-rises, they would put on these apartments and they would suspend these cages in the air. Can you believe it? It's absolutely stunning. Now, babies are in one sense more durable than we give them credit for. And I think we understand that. Yet in another sense, they're quite vulnerable. Which is mind-blowing when you consider how God comes in such a vulnerable state. When Mary lays Jesus in a manger, she's not trying to get him some fresh air. There probably wasn't much in that. She lays him in the manger because she doesn't have another option. And it turns out to be a profound sign for others when it comes to how they know they have found the Savior. So the angel of the Lord says to the shepherds in Luke chapter 2 and verse 12, "And this will be a sign for you, and you will find a baby wrapped in swaddling clothes and lying in a manger." These are the words of the angel to those rough and tumble shepherds outside of Bethlehem in the middle of the night. The angel just told them, "I'm bringing you good news of great joy. A Savior's been born of Bethlehem, and he's been born to you, and this is how you know you'll find him. He's lying in a manger." It's like the angel says, "Here's your sign." But why do people use signs? People use signs because they're trying to direct your attention to something. People use signs because they're trying to tell you something here that is important, something here that you need to look at, and God had something important He wanted them to find and to look at Jesus. He was trying to give them a direction. Let me ask you another question, though. Why would a baby in a manger be a sign? Have you ever just sat back from time to time and thought of the "that's weird" moments in your life? Because sometimes God is speaking to you through a "that's weird" moment. And a baby in a manger is definitely a "that's weird" moment. People didn't keep their babies in beach traps back then. That's just not normally where you find a baby, especially a baby that is supposed to be royalty. But that's where they found Jesus. And so you read on in Luke 2 and verse 16 that it says, "And they went with haste and they found Mary and Joseph and the baby lying in a manger." And this would be the first of many times that the Son of God is going to be found in the most unexpected of places. Later he's going to be found eating with people like tax collectors and prostitutes. He's going to be found eating with the notorious sinners of the day. He's going to be found among the sick and the outcasts who were ostracized because it was thought at that day that they were under the judgment of God because of their condition. The manger was only the beginning of Jesus being found in unexpected places. And this habit of him showing up in the most unexpected places doesn't stop. It keeps going and going and going, all the way to the cross. But even after the cross, 3 days later, Jesus keeps showing up in unexpected places. They go to find him in the tomb. He's not there. All of a sudden, he's alive and in some of the most unexpected places you'd imagine. And for the last 2,000 years, Jesus has been showing up in some of the most unexpected places. He's been turning up in the lives of all those who would open themselves up for him to live inside them. want you to miss this or misread this sign at Christmas. Because there's always someone who thinks he doesn't. And he won't have anything to do with you. And I would tell you, don't miss the sign, because the angel says this is good news for everyone. Not for everyone except you. He is Savior of all. And as the story unfolds, Jesus has this habit of being found in the most unexpected of places, saving in the most unexpected of ways, and redeeming some of the most unexpected of people. We've well established the fact, since you guys have known me, that we are a dog family. We do very much prefer the dog over the cat in our house. But have you ever noticed, if you're a dog person, this is a fun trick, you can do this when you get home, is if you have something that you want them to have pay attention to, and you point to it, what do they look at? They look at your finger. You can have their favorite treat sitting over there at some other place. You can even throw it for them, and you say, look, go get it. And they look right at your finger. But you know what? Human beings are just like dogs. We do the same things that the dogs do sometimes. We talk about pointing out something this way or that way. God gives us signs to point to something greater. But sometimes we're so focused on the sign and the pointing of Christmas. The point of Christmas isn't the manger. The point of Christmas is the one in the manger. It's not the lights. It's the life. It's not the gifts around the tree. It is the gift that we talked about this morning. And it's not even the children. It's the one who came for your children and for all of us. And it's possible to have Christmas and completely miss the point. And we've probably all had our share of Christmases like that. And maybe even this moment can be a moment right now where gradually the point is arising again in your heart, because you get the point and you really can have a new year. Because of Jesus, it really is possible to have a fresh start and a new beginning and a second chance. On the calendars, you have to go through Christmas to get to the new year. But here's the truth. The truth is that Christ has to go through you if you want to get a new life. Jess Moody was a pastor, recently passed away at 93 years old. Many years ago, though, Jess was leading a group. He'd stumbled into this group of rather influential and wealthy women in a Bible study. Back years ago, these women would occasionally visit his Bible study. One of the women was none other than Rose Kennedy, the mother of John F. Kennedy. Rose lived to be 104 years old. Many people don't know that Rose's first daughter was born with tremendous mental deficiencies. And that became apparent in the first few years of her life. Her name was Rosemary. Rose was filled with anger and resentment towards God over Rosemary's condition. For one, Rose's own husband, Joseph, didn't want Rosemary in the house. She was raised outside of the house for many years. And Rose went on later to confess that even in those early years, she was shunning Rosemary. And she seethed with anger over her condition, over the child suffering the way that she was suffering, and over how the situation was holding her back from some of the things that she wanted to do with her own life. And finally, one of Rose Kennedy's maids confronted Rose. And one night she got the guts up to say what was really on her mind. She said, "Please excuse me, Mrs. Kennedy, I've been watching you, and I want you to know that I love you very much, and I hate to see you destroying your life like this. And I want to say this to you as respectfully and as gently as I can. You will never be able to move forward and really make your life right until you make your heart a manger where Jesus can be born. Rose fired her that very night. But that night also, Rose couldn't shake her words. Rose had been going through the motions of her Catholic faith for her entire life. But she said that night something happened when she finally had a point of real contact with the presence of Jesus as she knelt beside her bed and she prayed that night, "Dear God, make my heart a manger where your child can be born." And an experience that she doesn't have words for. The only thing she knew to call it was she experienced some kind of divine entry that was the beginning of a real relationship with Jesus for her. One that sustained her through a philandering husband. One that sustained her through generations of kin and heartache. One that she said was a game changer for her in many respects. She began to experience this newfound love for Rosemary that she had never had before. And even in the long run, she would wind up with a newfound love for children of all kinds, dealing with all kinds of special challenges. You know the rest of the story. Because it was Rose Kennedy who was instrumental in the development and behind the scenes in Special Olympics all those many years ago. But what a lot of people don't understand is that her story began with a maid who told her, "You'll never move forward until you ask the Lord to make your heart a manger for his own son to be born." By the way, Rose rehired that maid. She was with her until the day she died. The manger of an angry, resentful heart might be one of the most unexpected places to find Jesus. But you know what? He'll be birthed there if someone will ask him. But like Rose and like the shepherds, we have to make a move toward him. They were invited and they were told about the sign, but they still had to make a move toward themselves. If you're a guest with us tonight, one of the things we want to invite you to is to make a move with the rest of us. We've just started the series in the Gospel of Luke, and we're journeying through the whole Gospel together. And we've just been in the Christmas story this month, so you haven't missed much. You're celebrating Christmas with us this very night. But this series is going to go and continue all the way through Easter, because the one in the manger eventually moves away from the manger. He outgrows the manger, and he invites us to follow him. And there's no greater way to respond to Christmas than to follow Jesus in the year 2020. But you and I can't follow him unless we fix our eyes upon him. And so as you leave, I hope that you will pick up tonight, if you haven't already, one of the Luke Scripture journals that's in the Welcome Center. And that you will be with us again and again as we go on this journey together. Before we finish, I want to tell you another story about a preacher up in Seattle by the name of Milton Jones. He had preached up in that area for over 30 years, and he had developed quite a reputation in the Seattle area as a minister. He had been in the newspapers for a number of good things that they had been doing recently. But one day, it was a summer day, they were out with some people with his church, and they were working among the poor and the homeless that were there in Seattle. One of the gentlemen that he ran across on the street corner, who obviously didn't have a place to live, Milton walked up, he gave him a sandwich. The gentleman looked at Milton, he did a double take, and he said, "Milton Jones!" Milton was stunned. The guy said, "Well, I've seen you in the newspaper, and this is the last place that I ever expected to see you, down here with me." And his words totally took Milton back. Because for the rest of the day, Milton found himself asking the question over and over, why would one of the first places you'd expect Jesus to be one of the last places that a man would expect to find me? And Milton realized that night that there was a gap that he needed to narrow between him and Jesus. And I so desperately want to be a sign that others can look at, that will direct them to Jesus. But if I'm going to be that sign, I have to follow him myself. So in just a moment, we're going to have our traditional candle lighting session where we confess Jesus being the light of the world and also confess that he's in work with each one of us, reflecting his light in the world. But before we do that, we're going to stop at another sign. And we're just going to take a moment and partake of the sign that we call God. If you're a guest with us here, everyone is welcome to partake. Everyone who's here to honor the Lord right now. We partake of it because we recognize that the one who began in the manger didn't stay there. He grew beyond it. He embraced a cross for the sake of all, so that we that are in darkness, he was resurrected, that we in darkness might find a way and a beginning and a fresh start. You've got to go through Christmas to get to the new year on the calendar. But Jesus has got to go through you and I if we're going to have a new life in him. I have another video I want us to watch before we take communion together. And it's probably one of the most powerful newer videos. The music group is called Pentatonics, and they sing the beautiful song, Mary, Did You Know? Let's listen to it.